in just the last few minutes. And so tonight, what we hope to do is bring you all the coverage that we do. That's high school football reaction and high school football talk. All right. Again, we are part of the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. Here on this Friday evening, we're going to be talking about so many things tonight, whether it's going to be high school football, whether it's going to be the Otters. For that, we bring in our world traveler, Jonathan Williams, joining us on another Friday night. Jonathan, safe travels in, I hope?
Yeah, it was kind of bumpy flight, but we made it safely and everything's good. So a lot of damage down here a little bit, but my people are good and everybody in my area is pretty good. So we're good.
That's a good thing to hear. And again, we wish the best for all those who are down south dealing with the effects of Hurricane Helena, the damage that caused tonight. Let's go ahead and get things started. And we're going to start tonight with what was our game of the week. The biggest game in terms of rivalry on the docket tonight was General McLean versus Fort LeBoeuf. Two teams coming into this game that were rolling, Jonathan, and had records that were equal coming into tonight. You thought it might be a defensive battle. I thought it could be a high-scoring game. Let's show you how it went down tonight with the highlights. GM Fort LeBoeuf from Carm Benito Field. It was military night for the Bison. Who would come out on top? We've got highlights from the first half. If you know our podcast, you know Nick Artman calls this combo ZZ Top, and they hook up on the second GM drive. It's Isaac Zeitz to Jacob Zeitz for the 14-yard touchdown, 7-0 Lancers in front, and then we go to the second quarter. Take a look at this. The same connection, hooking up deep over the middle. Isaac to Jacob into the breadbasket. Then he is gone. 84 yards to Pater for the score. Lancers take a 14-0 lead. Still in the first half. The ZZ Top connection not done. It's Isaac looking over the middle. Jacob making the catch again. The two combined for 4 touchdowns, a 73-yarder to boot in the second half. Lancers all over LeBoeuf. 28-6 your final. And GM now sitting at 5-1, Jonathan, on the season. And the offense just continues to dominate. Isaac and Jacob Zeitz. The question is tonight, is there anyone that can stop them? Hey, Jonathan, if you would do me a favor, your mic might be muted if you want to go ahead and there you go. All right, let's try that again. Give us your insight. We don't want to miss it.
It doesn't look like anybody is going to be able to stop him. I was wondering it's time to just go ahead and start putting 2 guys over the top of Jacob Zeitz and just taking him away completely and making GM beat you with everyone else. And then I watched the highlights and I watched him make a play on a go ball over 2 defenders. These guys, those 2 kids in general, and then the entire General McLean football team is just on another level right now. I was really high on Fort LeBoeuf coming into this game, and I'm still really high on Fort LeBoeuf, but GM just kind of went in there and showed us they're a different monster right now.
Now, it's interesting because we talked on Thursday's show and Thursday's podcast about how, could Fort LeBoeuf stop the General McLean offense? But I don't know if it was you or Nick Artman that made the point that while it was going to be important for the LeBoeuf defense to make plays, General McLean's defense was going to need to step up as well. And again, the Bison without their starting quarterback tonight, they have to go to their second-string guys, so the passing game really wasn't a huge factor. But for General McLean to limit the LeBoeuf to 6 points on the road in a hostile environment, I think is a huge credit to Wayne Bradford and that defensive core that at times had looked vulnerable this season, but tonight they did not.
Yeah, I had said that they were going to have to get at least 2 stops to win this game because I anticipated it being a closer game. Apparently, they got a lot more than 2 stops and played really well on that side of the ball. Obviously, Fort LeBoeuf is not at full strength without their starting quarterback, but you show up and you play with the 11 that you have, and GM did that defensively, and they executed their game plan well. Holding Fort LeBoeuf to only 6 points is an amazing performance for that defense.
And again, the other thing that you have to factor in, too, in this game is the rivalry aspect of it. We said on last night's show on our podcast, by the way, make sure to check that out. We're on YouTube, on Twitch, on X, and on Facebook streaming live right now. If you're watching on our podcast network, you're seeing the scores go across the bottom of the screen. You know, we talked about the rivalry, right? And how, in my view, in my opinion, I went to General McLean. I think personally it's probably the second biggest rivalry in Erie County, save for Prep McDowell. And again, that's with due respect to Harbor Creek Northeast, Fairview, Girard, other rivalries of the sort. But I just think when you look at the way Marshall McCormick has been able to win the 2 games in particular against Fort LaBeouf. He is an offensive coach. He loves to move the ball down the field, and there were long touchdowns tonight of 84 and 73 yards. But the defense won both games. In the 2 wins for Marshall McCormick, he's yielded 13 total points. And so to me, that's a compliment to General McClain in the sole fact that now you can make the argument they are capable of winning games, not just with offense, but with defense too, really dating back to that Corey game last week.
Gives you a lot of confidence as a coach to know that you don't have to be in a shootout to win, and you don't have to score 40 or 50 points to win a game. When you get into games, especially playoff caliber games, where you might run into a team that can stop you on offense, you might run into a team that can get off the field a couple of times. You know you can rely on your defense to get those same stops as well, and all hope isn't lost because you're not putting up the amount of points that you're used to. So it's a great credit to their defense. It's a great credit to that coaching staff. Coach Bradford does a great job with those kids. And, yeah, it's just a great credit to them. They played very well, and they played very well defensively. And that wound up being the key in this game. That wound up being the difference.
So for General McClain, they now move to 5-1 on the season with a 28-6 victory. They've won 5 straight games. LaBeouf's still in the thick of things. They're sitting at 4-2. Obviously, you would like to have won this game, but it doesn't hurt you for region, nor does it hurt you for classification playoffs because GM is now 4A. They move up. LaBeouf stays at 3A. So a win you would have liked to have for the Bison, but it's not the end of the world in terms of if you're going to lose a game for playoff implications, this is probably the one to lose. You still have Fairview coming up next week, a couple of other big games down the stretch in region play. So still a lot out there for Fort LaBeouf. They still got plenty of time to be able to make things work, and they're still a strong team. But I just think General McClain, as we've talked about, there are a lot of offensive weapons on this team, and they're going to be hard to stop down the stretch. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more high school football highlights, but we're going to give you an update on the Erie Otters, and we're bringing in Sean Bednard and Trevor Kubea live from Kitchener, Ontario, as this game just went final between the Otters and the Rangers. We have that live breakdown coming up in 60 seconds here on the Critical Eye and the Gem City Sports Podcast.
This is the Critical Eye.
We welcome you back both on air, online. More high school football to come in just a minute. But before we get to that, how about the season opener for the Erie Otters tonight? They, just moments ago, wrapped up a 5-2 victory over the Kitchener Rangers. Martin Misiak with 2 goals and Noah Erliden, 32 saves on 34 shots in his first start with Erie. So the Otters, as they get ready to come home tomorrow night, they had a great showing this evening, getting revenge on the team that knocked them out in the playoffs a year ago. 5-2 your final, but better others than me to be able to talk about this game. All right, joined now by the gentleman who called this game, Sean Bednard and Trevor Kubea, joining us from Kitchener tonight. Guys, we'll start with this. The offense looked really good in this game, and 1-0 is better than 0-1.
Yeah, 1-0 is better than 0-1 to say the least, and especially 1-0 for the first time since 2019. 1-0 on the road for the first time since 2017. Trevor, the offense just really showed up tonight, like Isaac said, and I think it's those same characters we expect. Sam Alfano, of course, leading the train. Martin Misiak, we want him to have a big season. He's coming in on a big season where he had a great time at Chicago camp. What a way to be able to start a season.
Just a fantastic start to the season. And Isaac, you and I talked about Wednesday night about how we need some of these familiar faces to come up big. And boy, did they ever tonight. It was really impressive to see some of the guys that you would expect, as Sean mentioned there, to be the superstars and to be the scoring for this team. Well, they certainly were here tonight.
And the other big part of it too, I mean, how much should we talk about beforehand, guys, of Noah Erliden, right? And how he could maybe potentially work with Ryan Zapolsky, 32 saves. What do you make of his effort tonight against a really good Kitchener offense?
Well, I personally think he was sold pretty high to us. I think he was almost undersold based on the performance he had tonight.
He was unbelievable tonight. Just his movement. We talked about this on the broadcast. His reading of the game, his movement is just elite. And I think that is the reason why he was sold so high to us. But as Sean mentioned, I think he was a little undersold. He was absolutely fantastic tonight for Erie. And again, it's only one game, but boy, it really looks like Erie might have their goaltender here for the future.
Especially to be able to do that against a high-scoring, high-flying offense in Kitchener. 2 shutout periods, you'll take that against the Rangers.
Guys, when you take a look at the depth of the lineup, I know it's only game one, right? And there's going to be some changes in the lineup. How do you make of the balance of the lines in particular and how they were able to roll, right? The playoffs, there was really only one line that worked. How do you make of the balance of the offense tonight?
Really impressed for me, especially knowing you're missing Schaefer, one of your key defensemen, missing Edwards, your catalyst during the offense. To be able to do this tonight, keep them to 2 goals, score 5 of your own. And we talked about it a lot on the broadcast tonight. Stan Butler's never afraid to shift the lines. He's never afraid to juggle. He juggled really well tonight to make sure the lines work together with good chemistry.
Yeah, when you lose a player in 5 minutes into the game, you're going to have to adjust on the fly like Erie did with Diego De Silva getting the 5-minute major penalty. And I think they adjusted really well. And again, something I mentioned tonight is just how this is nowhere near the complete lineup and how good they looked and how strong they looked and how it looked like they had been together for years when the truth of the matter is they've really only been together for a couple of days. Just really impressive in terms of the preparedness and how they were able to go out and really take it to Kitchener at points tonight.
How about the defense? Just 2 goals allowed. What do you make of them minus Schaefer tonight?
Strong, I would say. A lot of block shots. Work in progress. There was a little rust, I think. We named a few guys specifically on the broadcast, but I think the guys who kind of struggled early on, I saw improvements, certainly. And I was really impressed with a guy like Halamago. I think overall, he plays a very physical game, but I really like the way he handled his stick tonight.
Yeah, Halamago was the guy who really stuck out for me. I thought just the way he was unafraid to get in lanes. And when you lose a guy like Owen Johnston, somebody's going to have to step up and fill in that defenseman role. And I feel like Halamago did a really nice job of that here tonight.
Gentlemen, home opener tomorrow night. What's the excitement behind returning to Erie tomorrow?
Oh, man, especially now. I was already at about a 10. Now it's closer to a 15. I mean, getting this win, it's big. Brampton's going to be a real test tomorrow, but I know the Erie faithful are going to show up, and I know home openers in Erie, they're special.
The building is going to be rocking tomorrow, and especially off the back of a win like this, on the road, away at a division rival, just huge. And again, hopefully a lot of people will be joining us at the EIA tomorrow for what should be a good one against a very good Brampton team, a team that up here in Canada, they're very, very high on this year. So, in last check, they were doing pretty well for themselves tonight. So, going to be a tough test, but I think Erie passed a really tough one here tonight, and perhaps even a tougher one tomorrow. But it's going to be nice having about 5,000 roaring Otters fans behind.
Great stuff tonight, guys. Safe travels home. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Isaac. Go Otters.
All right, we'll be right back.
This is the Critical Eye.
More Region 5 teams with big matchups tonight, including a team in Region 3 that leads the region, Corey Mercyhurst Prep. This was a great one from Saxon Stadium. Early third quarter, 15-7 Corey. Nolan Carey, little flare out to Nate Lesher. He's into the end zone. 21-7, the lead for Corey. Next Mercyhurst Prep drive, Everett Cottrell going to loft one deep, but Keon Fresina is there for the INT, and it looks like this game is going to be all Corey. Keaton Fresina taking that back near midfield, but then the Vinny Feliciano train gets rolling in the fourth quarter. Takes this ball, bounces left, and then tiptoes the sideline, and he's off to the races. 66 yards to Pater for the touchdown. It's 21-14. Mercyhurst Prep down 7. Next Laker drive, 3rd and 1. Why not give it to the man Nick Yartman calls the Don? Vinny spinning off tacklers and going long again. 69 yards to tie the game at 21, but a late punt return from Corey wins it 28-21. So the Beavers now sitting on the year with a great win. They now move to 4-2 on the year. Let's go to another team in Class 3A that's vying for a top seed in the playoffs, Titusville. In an on-region game against Region 5 Northeast, First Rocket Drive. They win the toss, they take the football, do Titusville. And this is why. Jackson Koval straight up the gut for 19 yards. Later in the drive, it's 4th and 1. Koval, just give it to the big man. Watch him rumble. Goes to Pater for the 27-yard touchdown, 6-0 after a block PAT. After Northeast punts the ball back, Ian McDonald, he can scramble, running from right to left, dancing down the sideline, a little fake pass there, and it moves the chains, and it sets up this. Another TD run from Koval. Barrels it in. Northeast falling tonight. Titusville all over the Great Pickers, 47-14. Bring back in Jonathan Williams with us here, joining us remote tonight, on air and online. Jonathan, start with Corey. Vinny Feliciano was tremendous tonight, but what resilience from the Beavers after giving up a 14-point lead and then getting it back late in the game to come up with their 4th win of the year.
Yeah, Feliciano was Feliciano, but hats off to Corey for slowing him down until that fourth quarter. You didn't really see him break a long one, and you really didn't see him get in the end zone until the fourth quarter. So we went into this game thinking key for Corey had to be to stop the run. That is Mercyhurst Prep's entire offense. That is what they do, is run the football. And to be able to beat that team, you have to be able to stop the run. Well, Corey just showed you, if you can stop the run for 3 or 4 quarters, you have a shot. They gave up the lead, and it took a great play on special teams to seal the game. But that's why you play the game on 3 phases. That's why every phase is important, and special teams is really special. And those guys in Corey found that out tonight. That wound up being the deciding factor in the game. But being able to stop the run is really, really important.
And the one thing, too, that I'll also say, Nick Lesher, that touchdown reception in the third quarter, he, of course, is a big key to the offense with Nolan Carey. But I think the defense is what impressed me most from Corey tonight. You take away those 2 long touchdown runs, you're right. They shut Feliciano down. And I think it's understandable. Listen, Vinny Feliciano is going to break a touchdown run every single game. But for Corey's defense to be able to shut down the majority of the rest of the offense, they forced 3 turnovers in the second half of Mercyhurst Prep, a couple of big interceptions down the stretch. Is it time to start talking more so about Corey's defense? Because if you look at the way they've been able to play this season, just 21 allowed to a good Mercyhurst Prep offense, just 19 allowed to Fort LaBeouf a couple of weeks ago. By the way, 33 to General McLean seems like 7. So maybe this defense, I think, should be getting more credit too. And I think this is a Corey team that is both a 2-dimensional football squad. That could prove big come playoff time.
Yeah, the saying is defense wins championships. So you have to be able to stop people to win big games. It's fun to score a lot of points. It's fun to watch offenses light it up, throw the ball all over the field, blow up the scoreboard. But can you get a stop when you need one? Can you shut down a high-powered offense when you face one? Can you stop a running attack like they just saw against Mercyhurst Prep for a majority of the game? You just saw, like, when you're able to do that as a defensive unit, when you're able to get off the field on 3rd down, when you're able to force turnovers, it makes life a lot easier for you as a football team. And it puts you in a good position to win some really big games. So hats off to their defense. They played really well tonight. Obviously, Feliciano's going to get his, but they played really well.
All right, so from Titusville to Corey, and the Beavers, Corey to Titusville, I should say. Beavers get the win, and Titusville dominates Northeast. Don't look now. Titusville's won 5 games in a row. They've given up 26 points in those 5 consecutive wins. Actually 4 consecutive wins dating back to today, and just 14 points allowed today. So 40 total points allowed in the last 5 games. That's pretty great from the defense. I'll tell you what, Jonathan, we talked a lot about the last couple of weeks in Class 3A in particular, that Sharon and Hickory were likely the cream of the crop, right? They were the top 2 seeds. And then that 3rd seed was open. Titusville dominates tonight. They're sitting at 5-1. Corey wins again tonight. They're sitting at 4-2. And Grove City just got their doors kicked in by Oil City. Oilers beat Grove City tonight at home 35-21. Is it safe to say, if you throw Fort LaBeouf in that mix as well, and I know we still have time left in the year, but I think we're about as close to saying that 3 seed is going to not be occupied by a Mercer County team as we ever have been?
Yeah, Grove City losing really opened it up. That is a result I did not expect in this game against Oil City. But that loss really opens it up, and it makes it anybody's ball game as far as a non-Mercer team getting that top three seed. We have great teams in Erie County, and it was kind of going to be a little bit of, okay, which Mercer County team is going to open the door? Which one is going to slip up and kind of leave a little crack in for one of our Erie County teams to get in? I think it's almost evident that it's going to happen at this point with the way that these teams are playing. As long as our powers keep playing like powers, you're going to have at least one that ends up as a top 3 seed.
Yeah, and you look at the competitors in that field, Titusville, Corey, Fort LaBeouf, all 3 of them, you could make an argument for that seed. Fairview is going to have a say for it, depending on Vinny Campoli and where that stands. But I think you look at Titusville and Corey in particular, and these 2 teams, ever since their week 1 game, they've been on rolls. I mean, you take away Corey's loss to General McLean, Titusville hasn't lost since that game in week 1 to Corey, and Corey's only lost once since that loss to General McLean. And so I think you look at these 2 teams and you say, okay, they're on a great trek to potentially be able to make some noise, and I think that that's a huge part as well. Region 5 teams making big strides tonight, namely Corey, and again in Class 3A, Titusville making a big push as well. So great stuff from those 2 teams. We've got more scores coming in. When we come back, we're going to go to Reynolds and Cambridge Springs. The Blue Devils trying to keep up the pace for their seeding superlatives in Class 1A. Those highlights are coming up in 60 seconds.
This is the Critical Eye.
Big one for Class 1A, potential playoff implications at Cambridge Springs. Both teams 3-1 coming into this one as they faced off against Reynolds. A little fire to light the way. One team on fire tonight, 14-0 Blue Devils. And the Raiders, though, recover the fumble and go on offense. First snap of the possession turns into a fumble. Blue Devils get it back. Then they march right down the field. Here on this quarterback pitch down the sideline. First sets up a 1st and goal for the Blue Devils, and Brandon Hoover doing the rest. A 1-yard plunge to make it 20-8. Cambridge Springs get it back, and they march down the field again. It was 28-0 at that point. Another touchdown here makes it a 34-0 game, and that's how this one would end. So Reynolds not 3-1. They dropped to 4-2 on the season. Cambridge Springs now 5-1 as they outlast Reynolds 34-0. We bring back in Jonathan Williams. Jonathan, Cambridge Springs, outside of the loss to Greenville's looked pretty darn good. And that defense, again, they just continue to dominate. Reynolds is a very good team, but Cambridge Springs, clearly, I think with Greenville, those are the two teams in Class 1A that are going to compete.
Yeah, and Cambridge Springs only split up came to Greenville, and that 17-0 loss seems to have kind of lit a fire up under them. They are definitely the cream of the crop of that 1A class alongside Greenville, and it just seems that those two teams seem to be on a collision course. It's going to be a fun second matchup down the line, I anticipate.
Yeah.
But I don't see anyone really holding a candle to either of those two teams right now.
Yeah, it's the fourth shutout Cambridge Springs has pitched this year. The only times they gave up points were to Greenville and then to Iroquois last week in the 36-20 win. I think this team for Cambridge Springs is a lot better than they were in that Greenville game, and give the Trojans credit. We haven't really seen them much this season, so it's hard to pinpoint the strength of the Trojans. I think up front they're maybe a little bit better than Cambridge Springs, but you look at Morgan Appleby, veteran quarterback, Brett Kania, he's a big part of this offense as well, and then they have some options on the outside. We saw that in this game that the Blue Devils can provide. So if Cambridge Springs can just keep winning games, I think they're going to be in a good spot as no worse than the 2 seed in Class 1A. They've got Cochranton, Maplewood, Lakeview on the rest of their schedule. That's per Max Prep. So, for the Blue Devils, I just think it's about keeping the train moving and understanding that you're going to get a rematch. It's going to probably be against Greenville. And remember last year, this was a team that lost to Lakeview in the regular season, got to play them again in the D10 championship game and won. So one thing we know about this team in Crawford County is that they are capable of exacting revenge and they're capable of making adjustments. And we'll see if they do that again down the stretch of the season. But it's going to be a really interesting run for Cambridge Springs, and that's a big win for them in Class 1A. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up our show here. We'll continue online with Jonathan and I with some more post-game reaction to week number 6. We'll come back and wrap up the Critical Eye next. Well, we brought you this programming announcement last night, but in case you missed our show last night, before we go, we do want to make a programming announcement that starts this upcoming Monday. A decision that was made by our station for political coverage will take effect starting on Monday. So the Critical Eye is going to be off air for a while. Between September 30th, that's Monday, and election night on November 5th, there will be a locally political-focused show that will take the place of the Critical Eye here at 10 o'clock. That will run Monday through Friday. And it will be up until election night on November 5th. Of course, the Gem City Sports Podcast on air online will continue to bring you that on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So make sure to tune into that on our Facebook page, Erie News Now, as well as X, YouTube, Twitch, and wherever you get your podcasts. We will return on the Critical Eye November 6th and 7th, and that's when our match, the second Erie edition, will commence with Dave Smith and I. It's that 2-part series premiere where Dave and I go head-to-head in the match at Lakeshore Country Club. So for the Critical Eye, we'll see you all in November. I'm not going away. We'll, of course, be online with the Gem City Sports Podcast and more nooks and crannies as we roll throughout. So until November, everybody, so long. More online coverage coming your way right now on the Gem City Sports Podcast. All right, and with that, we are back online here on YouTube, on Twitch, on X, on Facebook. wherever you get your podcasts. It is the After Dark version of the Gym City Sports Podcast. Isaac Petyash, Jonathan Williams, who is joining us, getting ready for a couple of cool football tryouts, and we're excited for him on that capacity, looking to go 3 for 3 where that's concerned. So great to have Mon, though, joining us virtually. He does not sleep, and we don't either. Jonathan, a lot of great games tonight, and this was, to me, I think, a sneaky week for high school football because a lot of non-region games tonight, but games that maybe mattered for playoff implications or to just pad your resume for the end of the season. And we were talking when we last left off about a couple of teams that had picked up some big wins. Corey and Titusville, Cambridge Springs, of course, General McLean over Fort LaBeouf. But before we recap those again, I want to get to a couple of scores that we didn't get to during the show. How about McDowell against Ohio powerhouse Villa Angela St. Joseph, who I believe hadn't lost a game coming into this one tonight. McDowell was up 24-7 in this game. They hold on to win 38-35. That is a huge, huge win for Aaron Slocum and the Trojans as they get ready to play Cathedral Prep next week, Jonathan. And I think we knew this McDowell offense was better than what it showed in the first 5 weeks of the season. To me, tonight was their coming out party.
I mean, look at McDowell's schedule. I'm looking at it right now. Your second game, you play Walsh Jesuit, who's ranked top 5 in Ohio per Max Preps. Then you play Mentor, who's ranked top 12 in Ohio per Max Preps. And then you have this game against a top 30 per Max Preps. Their schedule has been brutal, and people might have seen those losses and seen some of those games and be like, "Oh, McDowell's down. No, they've just played a really tough schedule at this point, and they are finally starting to click. They're finally starting to put it together offensively, and it's happening at the right time for them because this is what matters now. They're getting into D10 play. They're getting into that region play. They're getting into playoff time. So now all of the battle testing that they've done early in the season is going to come back, and it's going to be to their benefit coming up. This is going to be a big matchup this week.
It is funny because McDowell has, via the schedule they sent us, 5 Ohio opponents on it. And again, it's hard because when you play in a region with 3 teams, it's really hard to schedule Erie County games. Of course, Region 7 has to play a team from Region 6. And for McDowell, that was Meadville last week. But, I think when you have the ability to schedule outside games, you do it. And it's worked for the Trojans in years past. Of course, Coach Bo Orlando would always schedule a Pittsburgh opponent. Aaron Slocum going the Ohio route this year. And it's a big momentum booster going into the prep game because I think it really gives you, to your point, Jonathan, it gives you a barometer of where you're going to be when, A, the District 10 championship game happens against Erie, and then B, if you get past that, the 6A playoffs, which we all know is a huge challenge because you're going to play whoever comes out of the WPIAL, and that's always a tough game. So for the Trojans, a really big offensive output tonight. Big win for them on homecoming nonetheless, so they send their fans home happy there. Then the team they're going to play in the 6A championship game, and we haven't talked about them much on this show because they've either been playing on Saturday or they've been away from home. I know it's a rebuilding year for Franklin, but how about Erie? 74 is what they put up on the Franklin Knights tonight. I know, again, it's going to be an uphill climb against McDowell in the 6A championship. I 100% get that. We know how the game between these two teams ended earlier this year with McDowell coming away victorious. But if Erie could be more consistent, I just think they would be so much better of a team because tonight showed you, look, Franklin has been struggling this year, but 74 points is 74 points.
I have been high on this EA Royals football team since week 1 when I watched them play Cathedral Prep. It wasn't a great showing, but they showed that they belonged in that football game. Mm-hmm. If you just look at their record and look at nothing else other than their record, you're like, oh, wow, this is a, 2-4 football team? Like, they're not that good, yada, yada, this, everything else with that. Look at these scores. You lose to McDowell by 4. You lose to Hickory, a really good Hickory team. I think Hickory's 5-1 right now by 2. Erie's in all of these games. Like, they're right there. They are right there. And I think that it was kind of a coming out party of sorts for them as far as being able to light up the scoreboard like that, just get a feel-good win. Because you've been so close for a couple of weeks to pulling off some really big wins. You finally get a big one under your belt, blow up the scoreboard, score a lot, everybody goes home happy, and now it's kind of like a confidence booster to let them know, like, okay, we've been close, we're here now. Now let's start playing football. I've been high on them since the beginning of the year, and they have a lot of athletes over there at Erie High. If they could get some consistency and they can get consistent production out of a couple of guys, they could be dangerous in that D10 championship game. We know McDowell. We know it's going to be an uphill struggle, but that could be dangerous.
I agree. And I mean, again, you look at Erie's schedule. If you take out the 2 games against Ohio teams that they played, and they're not going to see them again in the D10 playoffs or potentially the state playoffs. The prep game was an 18-6 game, probably should have been a 12-6 game if that touchdown gets called a fumble. But, whatever, you still play well against prep with your defense. The McDowell game, I mean, you could make the argument they could have pulled ahead there in the second half, just didn't finish drives as they didn't against Cathedral Prep. And then to your point, Hickory is an unreal team. I mean, I understand the Hornets have the loss to Sharon and they have the victory over Erie close, but the Hornets are no joke. And even though it's a 3A versus 6A comparison in classification, this Hickory team could play with anybody in District 10. I really believe that. So big credit to Erie for getting the win tonight. They're sitting right now at 2-4, but I don't think that record's indicative of how much better they've been. And again, kudos to Andre Henderson for what he's been able to do with that program. This is the best chance I think Erie has, certainly has had as the Erie Royals since the beginning of the COVID pandemic to take down McDowell in the championship game. And so we'll see how the rest of their schedule plays out. Again, looking at their schedule the rest of the way from what they handed us at Oil City, another Ohio team in Euclid, then Canisius, and they finished with Meadville. So still a lot of track left on the train for Erie coming up at the end of the season. Other scores we did not get to, we mentioned Grove City losing to Oil City 35-21. So that drops the Eagles to 3-3 overall. And now you're sitting with a potential non-Mercer County team as a top 3 seed in Class 3A, and I don't think that's anywhere near close to a question at this point. Other scores that are coming on across our ticker: Fairview upend Seneca 13-9 in a game that, of course, both teams are injured and banged up pretty bad. So a credit to Fairview for pulling out that win. We figured it would be low scoring, and it was. Shout out to Girard and Mark Brooks' squad. Their first win of the season. They take out Warren 21-7. I think Girard's played a lot better than what their record indicates. It's good to see them get a win. The Warren Dragons still trying to find their way as we roll through the season. Jonathan, I want to go back to General McLean Fort LaBeouf, how we started the show. And we mentioned a lot about how this Lancer offense was dynamic tonight. Of course, they've been Isaac Zeitz to Jacob Zeitz with 4 more touchdowns. But I really want to hone in on the defense. We had Wayne Bradford on the program last night. He talked more NFL than high school. But when you play Fort LaBeouf, as has been referenced this season, they're going to hit you in the mouth. That's what they are. They're aggressive at the line of scrimmage. They try to run the ball downhill. 6 points yielded in this game, and I don't even really think the score probably was indicative of how well their defense played. GM's defense is going to be just as important as the offense down the stretch, and I think tonight was a coming out party for Wayne Bradford and that defense tonight.
Yeah, as a defense, they haven't really had to do very much all season. If you're looking at the scores and you're looking at how many points their offense is putting up, it's like you could go out there and lay down almost, it seems like, because no matter what, your offense is going to come out there and light up the scoreboard. But in games where their offense hasn't put up 40 or 50 points in a game, this defense has played really well. 19 points against Corey, 6 points against Fort LaBeouf. Like, these were the two games that we kind of looked at and kind of circled on this schedule as, okay, these are going to be your show me games. Like, you're going to blow out everybody leading up to this, but this is the game where I'm looking at you playing some real comp, honestly, some real competition. And this defense has stepped up to the plate. They've stepped up to the challenge. When you play Fort LaBeouf, you're going to go downhill. They're going to run the ball between the tackles. They're going to play smash mouth football, and they're going to try to wear you down. And they've done it well over the course of this season to a lot of their opponents. This defense wasn't having it tonight, and it showed. Like, holding Fort LaBeouf to only 6 points and stopping that rushing attack, that is a wonderful performance for them.
The other note that I'll mention as well, and I know we talk about them every single show, but with deserving praise because of the way that they've played this season. It is scary to me, and I think should be scary to the rest of the teams on General McLean's schedule, when at this point in the year, Opposing defenses know, and we've talked about this on our previous shows. Fort LaBeouf knew coming into the night that Isaac Zeitz was going to throw the ball to Jacob Zeitz a lot. Other opposing defenses are going to assume that as well. You are planning and game planning around those two individuals, yet it still didn't matter tonight. And the scary part about GM is, and I think this is for any football team at all, is when you have so much confidence in a pair or a trio of players that you know that the defense is going to prep for that all week. They're going to make a plan to take your best option out of the game, and you don't care. And you throw the ball there anyway. And for multiple 70-plus yard touchdowns to happen tonight against a really good Fort LaBeouf defense, you know, GM's got a lot of options, Jonathan, but I'm not sure, maybe save for Meadville and Cathedral Prep if they can figure out a game plan. I don't know in the state of Pennsylvania if there is going to be a defense out there. Maybe there is from Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, but certainly to me not from Erie County that can stop number 2 and number 3 in red and white.
Yeah, that pair is just absolutely ridiculous, and I would be absolutely remiss if we didn't congratulate Isaac Zeitz on becoming the all-time passing leader in GM history tonight. That's a crazy accomplishment, especially with 3 more games to play. Congratulations. You've been lighting it up. He's been lighting it up. That pair has been lighting it up, and I don't know of a way. Like it's getting to the point where Zeitz is going to have to get the Calvin Johnson treatment. You're going to have to line up 2 guys on the line of scrimmage like he's a gunner on punt and put 2 guys in his face all game and just say, you guys cannot throw the football here. Beat us with anybody else, but you can't throw the football here. I'm getting to the point where I want to see it. And I want to see how GM adjusts because they have weapons all over the place. And Isaac is good at spreading the ball all over the field. But I want to see how they would adjust to that. A team just coming in and saying, okay, I'm just going to take away Jacob. We're going to take away 2, and we're going to make you beat us with absolutely anybody else. Because it seems like that's the only real shot you have of beating this Lancer team right now. You're
not wrong. And again, we also checked with the General McLean School District to confirm that those numbers were true, and based on the GM school records, that is the case. So Isaac Zeitz enters into the history books. He surpasses Drew Astorino, who I think consensus in Edinburgh is the greatest athlete that General McLean has ever had in their school. And when Drew played, GM won a state championship. So not saying that it's going to happen this season, but the pieces are there, and we'll see if they continue their stretch through the rest of the regular season and then the playoffs. Before we go, Jonathan, your performance of the night. Give us the one team that you were most impressed with this evening on the high school football slate.
Anytime you score 70 points, I got to give it to you. Erie High, for sure. Finally, kind of getting over that hump. I know it's got to feel good to blow up the scoreboard like that. I don't care who you're playing against. So they get my performance of the night, and I know who yours is going to, but they'll get mine.
It's not. I'm not giving it to General McLean because I think that Fort LaBeouf was a little banged up. Yeah, you can look at me that way. I'll get called out as a homer. I've already given them a couple of performances of the night. General McLean played well. There's no question about that. And we can talk about ZZ Top all we want and the defense, and that was a big part. But I got to give it to Corey. And I think that, you look at the way the Beavers were playing coming into this game. They had come off a challenging loss to General McLean. Just before that, they had lost to Fort LaBeouf. And momentum not really on their side when it comes to a road environment against a Mercyhurst prep team that had been rolling, including just a few weeks ago, that big win over Seneca to take hold of region number 3. I think a couple of things. I think number one, the biggest thing that I saw out of Corey tonight was the defense and the fact that if you exclude the 2 long runs from Vinny Feliciano, which was just Vinny being Vinny, you also have to take into account that the secondary was great too. Corey forced 3 second-half turnovers. That was a big part as well for the Beavers. And I think with Nick Lesher and Nolan Carey there in the backfield, Corey is able to be methodical. They're not going to beat you with a big play, although they can blow the top off the football when necessary. But they were methodical tonight. Long drives that kept Mercyhurst Prep's defense on the field and ultimately wore them down at the end. The punt return wins the game, and the defense gets it done late. So big props to Corey. They get a big win, another feather in their cap with now a 4-2 record as they try to march toward the Class 3A playoffs come the next month or so. All right, We are done here on the Gem City Sports Podcast. Again, if you missed our announcement with the Critical Eye, we will be going off the air. It's a station decision that there will be a political show that will take the place of our show between September 30th, that's this upcoming Monday, and November 5th. But we will continue on the Gem City Sports Podcast. So Jonathan is not going to get away from us that easily, although he will be getting away this weekend. Hey, man, good luck this weekend. And again, just be safe out there. I know that, the hurricane that just came through has wreaked a lot of havoc, and we're just hoping the best for them. But safe travels this weekend, and thanks again for being a part of this show. We're already 6 weeks down, so we're rolling here.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man, and definitely going to stay safe down here and come back with some good news for sure. But, this season has been rolling, man, and it's only getting more exciting. So we're going to keep all the coverage right here. We're not going nowhere. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to be here for the long haul.
We're going to be here, and we're going to be here back again next Friday. We'll be a virtual environment, so you can join us on YouTube, on Twitch, on X, on Facebook for our Week 7 reaction to high school football, which will include Fairview and Fort LaBeouf and Cathedral Prep and McDowell, not to mention the other games as well. Those two enough are good for a 45-minute show to talk about. So make sure to join us for a Week 7 reaction coming up next week. Our next show is Monday morning on the Flagship City Sports Podcast, again, part of our network. Join Nick Gartman, Jonathan, Paul, Adamczyk, myself. We'll talk NFL, break down more of Week 6 of high school football, and maybe the Otters as well as they get win number 1 on the season, looking for win number 2 tomorrow. That's all for us. Football Fridays at 11:15 on WICU and WSEE. For all the highlights that you missed on this show, enjoy your Friday. Stay safe this weekend and have a wonderful Saturday.